Hi, everyone. Hoping that your 2025 is off to a positive start. We're going to touch on the Apocrypha quickly here. If you are not familiar with the Apocrypha serves as a collection of writings that are external to the Old Testament and New Testament, and in many ways bridge the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so it sort of fills in some missing pieces, or that's what it's purported to do. What I have noticed about the Apocrypha, the various writings that comprise the Apocrypha, is that they are somewhat anomalous. Okay, so they stand out, which is very interesting. The other thing that has been noted about the Apocrypha is that it, as a collection, appears to be a piece of mysterion. We've discussed mysterion extensively, and so you might want to check out some of those discussions about mysterion. Mysterion is essentially mystery, and so a number of the writings that make up the Apocrypha have a mystery system feel to them. And if you haven't noticed that, then you probably need to pay closer attention to what you are reading in the Apocrypha, and you also need to read it for yourself versus having individuals tell you what's in the Apocrypha and then, believing that you understand it. And so you need to read it for yourself, and you need to deconstruct it. So you need to do an exegesis just like you would do for any other parts of Scripture. Now, I have long had some concerns about the Apocrypha, and it wasn't until generative AI really took off with ChatGPT and sources like that, that it occurred to me what some of the concerns were really about. The Apocrypha, many components of it, it reads like generative AI hallucinations. If you are not familiar with generative AI hallucinations, I encourage you to look that up and become familiar with it. And so that's the way, in many ways, that some aspects of the Apocrypha present. I'm not sure if generative AI was going on back then when it was presented to the world, but again, that's a part of the feeling of some of the aspects of the Apocrypha, and it's what makes it not hang together. So it's supposed to be sort of this glue, but it stands out as being anomalous. It is also noted that there are many aspects of the Apocrypha that present as writings that are really for an intended audience, not the general public. These writings appear to be illuminist writings. So if you are not familiar with what an illuminist is, you might want to look at that a little bit more. But that's definitely what appears to be going on with the Apocrypha. And so this is not just one part of the Apocrypha, but several components. And yes, the Book of Enoch is probably chief among them. And the Esdras books, those also stand out. All of them do, quite frankly. But again, I know some people feel like they help to make the Old Testament and the New Testament make sense to them. However, I question whether individuals are actually doing an exegesis of the Apocrypha and determining that for themselves. Because I've seen individuals actually preach from the Apocrypha. And what's interesting is that they will share an opinion, or they will start reading parts of the Apocrypha to share with people, to make a point, and then they will gloss over certain things or change what's actually in there. So it's very interesting to note that. But again, this collection does not appear to be written for the common man or woman. And here we have the definition for this collection of writings that has been identified as the Apocrypha. Apocrypha comes from the Greek, and it essentially means hidden, hide away, hidden writings. Some people think these writings were taken out of Scripture, but they weren't actually in Scripture the way that many people think they were in Scripture. And there are some very old Bibles that include the Apocrypha, but I've actually never seen these Bibles firsthand. And of course, the one Bible is the one that's on top of that mountain in Ethiopia with the clergy there. So I've never seen that. It's written in a language that I do not understand, and quite frankly, I don't know anyone personally who understands the language that it's been written in. But again, it's these hidden writings that have come to the light. Okay. And so again, it just simply means hideaway or hidden writings. And so again, fulfilling that definition or that understanding of mysterion. And here you can see the etymology for Apocrypha starting in the late 14th century. It indicates that these writings that were books that were supposed to be related to the Bible or a part of the Bible, they were secret, Apocrypha meaning secret, not approved for public reading. What did I just say to you about what the Apocrypha appears to be about and who the intended audience appears to be? It does not appear to be the regular churchgoer. It doesn't appear to be the regular person who believes themselves to be descended from Jacob. The writings appear to be written in a very cryptic way in many instances. And again, lots of contradictions. And another thing I want to point out about certain aspects of the Apocrypha. Certain aspects of the Apocrypha pretty much nullify the entire New Testament. And that's something that I haven't heard individuals talk about. But there are paradigms and there are pieces of what would be considered doctrine in various aspects of the Apocrypha that again nullify the New Testament. And what's also interesting about the Apocrypha is that certain aspects of it seem to align with some of the writings that are related to those who understand themselves to be the descendants of Ishmael. So that's very interesting with respect to the Apocrypha. So it sort of, ventures into another area of the Abrahamic traditions there. So again, that also stops it from hanging together and serves to nullify the New Testament. It also indicates here that the Apocrypha is related to the construct of crypt, CRYPT, again, to hide. Now here it also goes on to indicate that the non-biblical sense of writing of doubtful authorship or authenticity is from 1735. And so there have been questions about the Apocrypha and whether it is legitimate. And of course, these are questions that you should be asking because what is becoming clear is that much of history that we have been presented appears to be altered, appears to be revised, appears to be tweaked a little bit. And so if you didn't experience something firsthand, you don't really know that the narratives that we've been given about how things have come about, you don't know if those things are true. You'd have to actually trust the individuals that are passing these things down to us, the historians, the theologians. You would actually have to trust that. And some of the things, because of the inconsistencies, there are problems with that. There are significant inconsistencies, by the way. And here we have a pretty clear-cut definition of a luminous, a person claiming to possess special enlightenment or knowledge of something. And it gives a few examples down below. Members of certain sects, SECT, from earlier periods in time. So you might want to check that information out. But again, that's how much of the Apocrypha reads. It reads like a luminous pieces of writing. And unless, of course, you are intending to be on the luminous track there, you might find the writings daunting. You might find the writings confusing. You might find the writings contradictory. You might find the writings a little bit gamey. Okay. Another thing that you might note with respect to the Apocrypha is that some of the writings read as very new age like. Okay, so they don't hang together the way the standard Old Testament and New Testament hang together. Well, there are some exceptions because you have some dynamics that are going on in Job and definitely in the book of Revelation, and of course some of the prophetic books that might sound new agey to people, but the Apocrypha specifically, again, in contrast to the Old Testament and the New Testament in general, the Apocrypha often presents in this sort of new age sort of way. But for many individuals, that's appealing for them. And so if that's something that's appealing to you, then you might find that a positive thing. However, for other individuals who are not planning to go down that path of enlightenment, they might find the new age sort of feel of the Apocrypha off-putting. We're going to quickly look at an example of some of the writings in the Apocrypha. And what you will notice if you read the Apocrypha, you digest it and you do an exegesis, is that when individuals consume the Apocrypha, they may be inclined to do what is known as falling away. And so it looks like in many ways there are aspects of the Apocrypha that would trigger that great falling away for many people, because again, it is in direct contravention of the New Testament. It is in contravention of the paradigm or doctrine of salvation. And so there's a lot of contradiction going on here. And it's unclear, why people are not frequently addressing this. But again, it is a dynamic wherein many individuals will be inclined to fall away after consuming many aspects of the Apocrypha. So we're just going to look at this one example, this second Esdras, and this is 728. And it indicates, "For my son, the Messiah, shall be revealed with those who are with him, and those who remain shall rejoice 400 years. After those years, my son, the Messiah, will die or shall die, and all who draw human breath." And then 30, "Then the world shall be turned back to primeval silence for 7 days. As it was at the first beginnings, so that no one shall be left." In other words, the earth, according to this narrative, will go from not chaos to order, but from order to chaos. And so we've also discussed what chaos is all about. And so it's a very interesting dynamic that is described here. But this is just one minor detail. There are many, and it depends on which part of the Apocrypha you might be digesting. But as you can imagine, many people are not expecting to see a passage talking about the Messiah that they believe they're going to be living forever with is going to die, but that's what's in the Apocrypha. There is also a very odd narrative about Jacob and Esau and how and why Jacob is the beginning of the world that follows after Esau. It sounds simple when you first hear about it, but if you actually read the entirety of it, it is very odd. I'll just leave it like that. It's a very odd narrative, but again, many individuals are reading what they want to read. And one of the things that stands out about many aspects of the Apocrypha and aspects of Scripture is that many people don't question various aspects of Scripture. They are not studying to show themselves approved, rightly dividing the word of truth. They are not doing that. And some people are just resting on this identity of being chosen. And so for many people, they don't really care what the Scripture says, as long as they can understand themselves as the chosen, special people out of all of the people in the world. You even see this interesting dynamic with respect to the Apocrypha, where some people are now identifying as Hebrew Israelite, using it to lay claim to the land that is America. There seems to be a total disregard for the history of the Americas and the American Indians, and an insertion of the chosen ones, if you will, into the narrative, sort of superimposing onto the actual history of the Americas, at least the history that we have. And so there's some interesting dynamics going on when individuals are reading, again, the Apocrypha. But these are some dynamics that people really need to be questioning. And what's also interesting is that there are parts of the Apocrypha that suggest that maybe you don't need to ask so many questions. So, again, it's just a very interesting dynamic. What also stands out is that many individuals who really are into the Apocrypha, who identify as Hebrew specifically, will offer that females in particular don't really need to study themselves. They need to simply be taught by the men, apparently in a congregation or in the household. This can be detrimental depending on who's interpreting things for you. The Scripture does say, study and show thyself approved. It doesn't say sit at the feet of someone else who has studied and hope that they have shown themselves approved. So again, there are a number of odd dynamics with respect to the Apocrypha, and you are encouraged to do your own research. We're going to wrap this up with a quick look at Mysterion so that you have a better understanding of exactly what we are talking about here. And so Mysterion is found at 3466 in the Greek in Strong's, and it indicates, as we've discussed before, one initiated, a mystery or secret doctrine. So it's referring to the mysteries. And that is essentially what you see with the Apocrypha. So you don't just see these writings that have been hidden away or obscured. You have writings that, again, appear to be for special audiences. Now, of course, many people like to feel like they are in the VIP section in life, and so they are always game for getting their hands on the special knowledge or something that everyone doesn't have. And so many people will be drawn to that simply because they want to have or be attached to something that seems mysterious, that seems unique, that seems hard to get, because it is sometimes a challenge even to get your hands on an Apocrypha. So, the collections, and sometimes you might even just buy discrete portions of it if you are looking to actually read it. And so it goes on to indicate that Mysterion is mystery, and it's from the derivative of muo, okay, which means to shut the mouth, a secret or mystery. Through the idea of silence imposed by initiation into religious rites, and rites is rites, in other words, a mystery. And so again, it does not appear to be writing for the common man or common woman. It does not appear to be that. So it doesn't present that way. And again, I go right back to some of it does present like what we are now coming to understand as hallucinations with artificial intelligence. And so that's very odd that is the case, but that is present. That dynamic is present with the Apocrypha. And here you can see the various forms and transliteration. So if you see it again, you know that it's talking about the same construct. And you have mysteria, mysterio, mysterion, okay? And so you have a variety here with respect to this idea of mystery, something hidden, something that is mysterious, something that is secret, something that is not shared with many, something that's not for the common individual. And so again, it really is an illuminist appearing collection of writings.